Hey, it's the old man here, and Yak Shamash. I'm good. I'm not sick. Um, 68 days in the hole. Holding up okay. Um, Stress levels kind of up there. It seems like just going to the store is stressful, or yeah, just a lot of stress I haven't felt that I can ever remember. But we just got to hang in there and know that there's better days ahead, and this has to end someday, and we'll get through all this stuff. So let's throw our cares to the wind and talk about the house at Space City. Um, yeah, what a place. People call it the ghost house. Um, Appropriate. I never felt any ghosts. I stayed in that house a couple nights by myself, and I didn't feel creepy or spooked at all. The only thing that did spook me was uh, up in the rafters were mice running around at night, and stuff would fall from the ceiling down onto the bed, and even some fell on my pillow, and that did kind of creep me out, but it wasn't spooky. It was just mice getting into stuff. So let me read what this says. Walker Valley home, just like one of many telling Skagit history. The classical home on Walker Valley Road east of Big Lake presently belongs to Frank Reinert. I don't know when this was printed. Probably in the 80s, maybe, I'm guessing. Was built by his father from 1907 to 1910. According to the records at the Skagit County Historical Museum, the elder Reiner reportedly found a picture of such a home in a carpenter's pattern book. Now, the story I heard was it was a Sears catalog that he copied it from, and designed his home from that, copying the cupola tower and copper roof that retained the weathered beauty today. Dozens of homes dot the county, telling the tale of country living here dating back to last century. Old house. Speaking of the old Reinert, this is Frank's dad. In memory of Hobby City, 1919 to 1926. Across the street from the house, we found what was left of Hobby City from so far back. And basically, all we saw was some train tracks that were up on a trail, whatever you call it, where the train tracks were off the ground a little bit and stuff. And yeah, we didn't even know what that was until we found that sign. And then some of the old people told us about, yeah, that Frank's dad had Hobby City. So yeah, that one is apparently lost to history, but it, yeah, we'll at least talk about Space City and what's going on in the house. Um, when we got to looking around, this thing here, that tower was laying down here in the bushes, and I saved it for a while, but it got waylaid. And what was up on the roof was this, a chamber pot. I don't know if I can, let me see if I can back this up so you can see it. Yeah, and what you kids don't know what a chamber pot is, that was the toilet in the old days. You used it and took it out to an appropriate place and dumped it out. Uh, so that was sitting on the very tip top. And it was just sitting there. There was no nails or nothing holding it on. And we discussed how Frank must have risked his life to go up on the roof. He's got some things here. It looks like he was working on something. And had to have a ladder to get to the top because you couldn't reach that far. We ended up, I did, replacing this with steel. And I had to have scaffolding. There was no way to do it safe without that. Um, yeah, and if you had a magnifying glass, that's the chamber pot sitting right up there. Yeah, what a place. Ghost house, people called it that, but like I said earlier, I think I never felt spooked or scared in that house at all. Yeah, it was okay. Like I say, I've never, doing the headstones and stuff, I've never felt creeped out. My theory is if you're messing with their stuff, you might get creeped out. There was some actually kids up in Cedar Woolley that went to a cemetery and not only pushed gravestones over, they broke them with a hammer, and I thought that would be enough to get things creepy, I'll say that. So let's look at some pictures. This ain't much. It's just this picture of all the wiring. The whole house had shotgun wiring everywhere, and the main service panel was just two of these, 110. And he had painstakingly soldered from there to there so that it was impossible to blow a fuse. And it is a miracle that house didn't burn down 100 times over. And this is the west side of the house. There's the cupola up there. And surprisingly, the roof didn't leak bad. I don't remember any wet spots. We ended up having a roof put on it just for preservation, but just a lot of stuff. There's junk out there. The kids had thrown stuff out the windows, and a year later, or 2 years later, I dug around in what was left here and found trinkets, some cool stuff. And there's the house after we got it all cleaned out. I think the boys took the windows out and had them. We're in the process of replacing the broken glass. Yeah, fun place. And here's the front door. And this is the ladder to get upstairs. He had taken the stairway out for some reason. And when you climbed the ladder, you were facing south. And one day I happened to come down the ladder backwards for some reason. And up in the rafters right here, from the inside, was a box of cassette tapes, and reel to reel, that he had stashed. I had to reach in there quite a ways to get it out, so he had definitely gone through the labor to hide those things. And I've listened to a lot of them, and that'll be one of my stories, and I'll play some of them for you. And here's the house all cleaned up. There's that speaker that is right there. There was a speaker. The boys, well, that's a whole different story. Anyway, he had speakers in the house, and apparently a speaker is also a microphone, so I don't know if he could hear people with this speaker, because people would park across the street at 2 in the morning. And he could hear all that stuff. So anyway, when I stayed here, my bed was right there. And right up in here is where the mice dropped stuff. And again, I never felt creepy. It was okay. It was a comfortable place. And here is junk. An old radio. And it had been picked over so many times, there was very little good stuff left. But I did find a lot of artifacts. I still have those to show. And here's the ladder that went up into the cupola. When I fixed that, we had to do some work inside there, so I actually worked off of that. And more junk. Here's one of his signs that I had, and I think it said something. I don't remember what it said, but yeah, he had stuff everywhere. Another shot of junk. And the west side of the house. And it was, like I said, it was a mess, but they fixed it up and lived there for, I think, a year. And people came by and raised heck even when they were living there. He had to chase them off a couple times. And there we are, redoing the cupola. Had to rent scaffolding so we could do it safe. And we found something to cover up that very tip top. I don't know if we made something. because I kept obviously the chamber pot. And there's the Thrasher 20 years ago before I started dolling it up. Yeah, the owners put a tin roof on there. They asked about, I was a caretaker, and they said, what do you think we should do with the house? And I said, well, let's keep it secure, and a good roof on there would be good. So they ended up paying some guys to do that, and then I did the cupola. That was fun. Nice summer day. That's one of the times I slept in there because I didn't want to leave all the scaffolding. It was there for a few days, and it worked out good. Nobody messed with anything. Here's a shot of the old man up on the top there. Yeah, 20 years ago. And here's the back door. And like I say, I tried to keep people out, so I actually built a wall right there with plywood and 2x4s. I used special screws that you couldn't take apart. And I came back, and somebody had taken an axe and opened it up, and there was no way to... It was just the house, nearest house was a mile away, and people did what they wanted to do. Yeah, what a place. And the end of the house. The neighbor lady told me, I went up there one day years later, and the house was gone, and I talked to her, what happened? Some kid, in his 20s and 30s, I suppose, I don't know how old he was, went in the house and started a fire. And that house, like I say, there was no sheetrock, nothing to stop it from burning. And it was like sawdust, I think, in between the walls for insulation. So, I mean, it was a fire waiting to happen. And the story was that he lit the house and drove up the road to an ORV park and was up on the hill, and he could watch the fire burn. And when the cops and the fire department showed up and stuff, apparently he came down, and the neighbor lady came over and said, you were just here, you did this. And he fessed up and went to jail for it. I don't know how much time he got out of it, but he burned it down, and that would be enough to get creepy ghosts after you doing something like that. They, yeah, you don't want to mess with the dead, I guess. Hang on a second. I got my tablet here with rumors and different stories. That film, the Cars, Frank's Cars, the Chords, the way I got those pictures is I found some film and took it to the film shop and showed it to him. And of course it was some oddball film that had to be sent to California to be processed. It took quite a while and stuff, but it just goes with everything else in that house was so different. And so, yeah, he was very eccentric and did a lot of stuff to, yeah, do his thing, I guess. He also, in behind the house here was power lines, the big ones, the big tall towers. And the story was, and I heard this from a couple people, that him and his brother had took a bow and arrow, yes, and shot a wire up to the power lines to try and steal power, and ended up in the hospital for 2 months or something. They said it burned his feet and almost killed him, and miracle it didn't kill him and all that stuff. Yeah, what a guy. And hobby, found a box of tapes. Yeah, what a place. Yeah, and a couple other little artifacts here. In this picture, there's a tower that he built, and at the top of that tower is a star. There it is. He had painstakingly put a light into that star, and apparently all of these buildings had lights in it, so it really must have looked like something at night. And when I look at this stuff, I think to myself, how was he working on this? Was he in a frenzy, kind of working real fast, or is he just super slow and methodical with all the soldering and all the To put that light bulb in there took some work. He had I don't know what he used, a hot knife or something to cut that star, but there it is. Yeah. And I've showed you this before, but it's still cool. A little tiny reel-to-reel recorder with an antenna on it. I wish I could have met him. Yeah, someday maybe. And yeah, lots of stuff at that house. Oh, you know what? I haven't never read this here. Space City, located in the center of a miniature production by Frank A. Reinhard, Modern and Future Living, located east of Big Lake on Walker Valley, Skagit County, state of Washington. The attraction is of great interest to tourists and local people. And it was. I've talked to a lot of people about Space City and about Frank, and what a guy. He never worked. I don't know if he had a pension. Supposedly he invented a couple things that he got royalties from, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, the only story I heard about him working is his brother worked at the mill on Big Lake and got hurt, and so Frank went to fill his place, but he only lasted a few days. He didn't do manual labor, I guess, or something. But he did. I mean, he worked. Everyone's got their gifts. May not be like everybody else, but we all got our stuff. And, 16 minutes. Thank you for listening. The old man will be back. We'll talk about the stages, about the tapes. Yeah, there's so much. I could go on and on and on and on, but not today. So everyone, please stay safe. I'm doing the same. Things are loosening up a little bit. I guess they opened the casinos of all things. Isn't that great? Yeah. Can't go to church, but you can go to the casino. Who'd ever thought? So stay safe. The old man will be back. And thank you for watching to the very end. You all take care. Bye.